Welcome back to Looking at Lucasfilm, the podcast with a different perspective on the world of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and all of the other entities that George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, and Jon Favreau, as well as the rest of the team at Lucasfilm, have dreamed up over the past 43 years. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and I'm joined today by my able-bodied co-host, pop culture enthusiast Brian Gaughan, and he and I are recording this week's show on Thursday, May 9th, which is 5 days after May the 4th, Star Wars Days, and 6 days after the 25th anniversary edition of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, made its triumphant return to theaters. And yes, triumphant's the right word to use in this situation, given that Phantom Menace first debuted at your local multiplex back on May 19th, 1999. So at this point, we're actually 10 days out from the official 25th anniversary.
But really, were there multiplexes back then?
I want to say yes.
Didn't you work at a theater that had how many theaters? Just two? Or?
That we were an old Jerry Lewis theater. So
okay.
We had two, but while I was managing it, we literally divided first one theater and then another theater into. So we had 4 screens at that point, but they were the size of bowling alleys. It was not a great movie-going experience. But
most of the theaters out here, there were one theaters, like especially in Newport Beach, that had the biggest screen on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. But there were other theaters. If they were a multiplex, it was usually just 2, and they were huge theaters. We had AMCs at the beginning, and those were the ones that you went in, and it was like being in your living room. But that all changed in 1999. Mm-hmm. Most theaters, even if they were multiplexes, they were stadium seating. So, and you didn't have to wait in line because there were so many theaters playing the movie at one time at the one location.
Okay, getting back now to Phantom Menace, which again went into theaters this past weekend, and what was interesting is it wound up being number 2 at the North American box office.
Wow.
Actually behind The Fall Guy. And again, not bad for a 25-year-old movie that, let's be honest here, we all have at home on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, not to mention being available to view on Disney+. And speaking of that subscription streaming service, you have to wonder, Brian, how many tickets to this 25th anniversary edition of Episode 1 were sold because Star Wars fans had heard out ahead of each showing of The Phantom Menace. Lucasfilm was going to show a new 4-minute-long preview of The Acolyte, which, as we mentioned, limited series will be debuting on Disney Plus on June 4th with 2 episodes back-to-back. Kind of interesting.
Did you hear about that? Did you hear there was because I didn't hear that there was going to be a 4-minute preview.
Again, this is kind of my job. So, yeah.
Okay.
I had heard that. And I have to admit, I was kind of intrigued because this is a new genre for Lucasfilm, The Acolyte.
Right.
It's a murder mystery thriller set in the final days of the High Republic. And by the way, speaking of mysteries, a friend of the show, Josh Gad, in honor of Star Wars Day, posted something on Instagram. Nancy gave me the heads up about this. Very enlightening, entertaining video, which proposes that someone at Lucasfilm has to really, really, really be into Oreos, Brian.
Well, it made me hungry, so yes.
Well, there we go. But Josh ran through this litany of Oreo-shaped things to be found in the Star Wars universe. I'm not going to spoil it. No. You just have to go take a look at it. I'm just going to send you over to Instagram to check out Mr. Gad's handiwork. One note, though, to Josh, I think you may have missed one, or at least to my ears, Naboo sounds an awful lot like a derivative of Nabisco, which is, of course, the home of all things Oreo. And by the way, Brian, you know what goes great with Oreos? Milk. And TruMoo Star Wars Blue Milk is out there now. I know this because my pal EJ White texted me earlier this week and said that he had found this vanilla flavored 1% low fat milk down in Kissimmee. Have you seen it on store shelves out your way?
No, I went on Friday, and not Friday, I'm sorry. I went on actually Saturday to see if to Target, and there wasn't anything in. I asked the guy. He said he didn't know anything about it, but that usually they come in the morning. Every morning they'll bring in the new milk. So I haven't. I checked yesterday and still nothing. But I will.
Well, okay. I think I can solve this
Okay.
mystery for you because I was having the same issue at my own local Target. However, over on the TruMoo website, there is a product locator feature. And it turns out there is plenty of blue milk available for purchase here in southern New Hampshire. I just have to go to a Walmart or a Market Basket. So it may be one of these situations where Target... Walmart offered better terms or gave them a sweeter deal, but I will say this much: I have to do some grocery shopping over the next day or so. I've been pressed into service to make Mother's Day gifts for my sister-in-law and likewise my own mom. So makings of quiche and puff pastries and that sort of thing. So I try to get to a Market Basket or a Walmart. And because, again, I have this lovely new Loath Cat Tiki mug that arrived in the mail today.
Oh.
And it would be perfect to drink out of that, some blue milk. And where did that come from, by the way? Well, obviously, Oga's Cantina. But how did this tiki mug make it all the way to New England just 5 days after it first went on sale in that Black Spire Outpost watering hole? And that's a story that Mr. Gaughan will share on the second half of today's show. But first, the news. And as always, the news portion of today's show is brought to you by touringplans.com. If you're headed down to Orlando anytime soon and plan on experiencing some of the theme parks you'll find around the city beautiful, well, you have to check out touringplans.com. Very smart people who run touringplans.com, well, they can help you find the shortest lines. They can also help you save money when it comes to purchasing admission to the parks. They can even share winning strategies with you that will help you make the most of your time in the park. So before you book that plane ticket to Central Florida, please head on over to touringplans.com, and you can thank Mr. Gaughan and I later. So Brian, we were just talking about Star Wars Day, May the 4th. And I want to say I've genuinely been enjoying how this holiday has been evolving over the last couple of years. Like, for example, did you see that ad that Apple put out for the iPhone 15, particularly highlighting their precision finding for the Find My Friends app?
No, is that a new thing? I didn't see the Apple. Yes, I should watch. I'm not a big Apple fan, so I.
Okay, no, I get that. Well, it's a cute little 3-minute long video directed by Kim Gehrig.
Oh, cool.
And it's built around really for real Star Wars fan Owen Jardinanio, who's in full Mandalorian gear. He's trying to find his clan at a Star Wars meetup, and evidently Apple reached out to Star Wars fans, and 172 of them, volunteered to be part of this 3-minute long video. So it lots of great outfits, lots of fans who are fully decked out in their Star Wars cosplay. So it's worth checking out for that alone. On the other end of the spectrum, he didn't go in his Star Wars outfit, but Mark Hamill dropped by the White House press briefing room on Friday. He was sporting I
did see that.
There we go. Sporting a pair of President Biden's favorite aviator sunglasses. And Hamill, when he got to the podium, told the press corps that the glasses were a gift from the president. And obviously, President Biden has to be a Star Wars fan because he gave Hamill a tour of the Oval Office before gifting him this set of glasses. And what I love is Mark's comment about this. It's like, I love the merch. And again, given that Mark has been playing Luke Skywalker for nearly 50 years now, this is a man who obviously knows his way around merch. And when asked about his tour of the Oval Office, Mark said the president told him to call him Joe, and Hamill's response was, "Can I call you Joe B1 Kenobi instead?" And evidently the president liked that. But anyway, the 72-year-old was very honored by this invite. Hamill had previously been to the White House during the Carter and then the Obama administration, but he had never previously been in the Oval Office. That said, Brian, it is kind of a shock to read that Mark Hamill is 72.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you know who's older than that? Tom Selleck, who turned 79 on January 29th of this year. And I bring up Mr. Selleck because this past Tuesday, May 7th, Day Street Books published Tom's 352-page memoir, which is entitled You Never Know. And why this book should be a must-read for looking at Lucasfilm listeners is because Selleck talks at length about the casting process for Raiders of the Lost Ark, and to be specific, the role of Indiana Jones. And so here's a quote from the book talking about that moment. So when I walked into the room for this audition, it was just those two guys, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and I didn't feel particularly nervous. And Steven was quick to greet me and gave me the pages for the test, told me not to worry, take all the time I need. There was a wardrobe waiting for me. The hat and the leather jacket helped me understand the period. And I was a big Star Wars fan, so I'm certain I brought that up. Anyway, on the drive home, I thought, boy, that was pretty cool. No pressure and having a face-to-face with two people whose work I loved. But as I was driving home, my head was full of thoughts. They're testing a lot of people. What happens if Magnum sells? But then again, what happens if it doesn't sell? I mean, this is the lead in the next big franchise after Star Wars. So, process is going to be a long one. But then, just a few days after the audition, Selleck gets the fateful call, and we want you to play Indiana Jones. And Tom remembers, I think it was Steven that told me. I mean, George has always been kind of quiet, always thinking, always taking things in. But I think I detected a hint of a smile on his face. And I don't have a clue. I don't remember how I responded. I hope I at least said thank you. So they handed me the script, and Steven said, read it and then tell us what you think. And so he said, I sat down and turned over the title page, and about 8 pages in, my guard just dissolved. I said, oh, shit, this is great. It was the part where Indy was being chased by the big round boulder, rolling down the hill after him. And I was reminded of when I rode my bike to the Lorena Theater on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks and watched the Saturday matinee movie serials for 25 cents. And he said the whole movie was right there on the page in front of me. But all of this was going to be, how do I put it? Complicated, extremely complicated. But hey, I had George Lucas and Steven Spielberg on my side. And look, Brian, you and I both know this didn't happen. CBS, for whatever reason, wouldn't let Selleck out of his contract to do Magnum PI, which particularly stung because once he passed on Raiders, there was an actor's strike, right? So he
right.
He would have been free because Magnum wouldn't have been moving forward. And of course, the role eventually goes to Harrison Ford. But
I think it could have worked. I mean, we've watched him in Magnum PI. I just got done seeing all the Jesse Stone movies, and even though he plays a character that has flaws and stuff like that, he's really good at that. He makes you like him. And I know Harrison Ford really knocked it out of the park, but I think Spielberg and Lucas had good instincts.
They did. They did. Speaking of Mr. Lucas's instincts, Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks in the Star Wars prequels. What's kind of interesting is, as we're now talking about the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace, Ahmed's doing interviews now where he openly talks about if he wonders if it would have been better, rather than accepting the role as that Gungan back in '97, if he turned down the part. I mean, there's a fairly lengthy interview that ran just this past week in People magazine. And I think it's important to stress here that people forget that Jar Jar Binks was the very first character in a live-action film to be created on screen using motion capture technology. So when Ahmed took this part, he had to deal with all of that tech that was involved in this production process. And he's quoted in the interview saying, look, I was the first person to do this kind of work, but I was also the first black person, the black man to do this work. He felt like he was especially in the spotlight. And he then talked about like the first table read for Phantom Menace and having this internal debate about whether he was actually going to do the Jar Jar Misa pidgin dialect, especially in front of his fellow Episode 1 cast members. And there's a quote here, they said, the first time I was going to do the Jar Jar voice in front of people. And to be honest, I didn't know if I was going to do it at that reading or not. And then I see the character name coming up in the script, and then I just do the Jar Jar voice, and everyone in the room goes crazy for it. And that's the part of the production of Phantom Menace that I don't think people today really understand, that on set, Ahmed was getting all of this encouragement from the cast and the crew when it came to his performance capture work, and especially his vocal performance as Jar Jar, which made Best, who was only 26 at the time, think that, the thing you've been working for all your life for, and you finally get it. You're finally in the big leagues. You're working at the highest level of the game, and you're holding your own. And so this is why Best, Brian, is just completely blindsided when Phantom Menace comes out in May of '99, and there's all this hate and anger that's expressed about his performance as Jar Jar. And Ahmed likened it to getting the rug ripped out from under him. He said, I didn't know what to do, how to react. And unfortunately, there was no one who could help me because I was in such a unique position. This had never happened before in film history, especially the online hate, the internet component. It felt like everyone was coming at me, and that my career began and ended with Star Wars.
Well, in the podcast, The Redemption of Jar Jar Binks, he talks about the voice. And the voice came out of a very innocent, very great way. It's a voice that he used to entertain his nieces and nephews. So when he did this in front of George before the table read, George loved it. Yep. George thought it was terrific. And like you said, at the table read, everybody thought it was great because first of all, you didn't see it in context, but it's just, and you're so right about the first. People went against Jar Jar as a character. It never came up that this was a computer-generated character. And for all intents and purposes, it was perfect. It was a real thing. And that's why there was a lot of hate for it, too. I mean, if it looked like a puppet, maybe there wouldn't have been as much hate.
It's an interesting point. And it's intriguing that you bring up that Ahmed would use the same voice to entertain his nieces and nephews, because what's interesting is it's the kids who saw these Star Wars prequels and who loved them, who are now adults, who have since become quite vocal when it comes to proclaiming their love for the Jar Jar Binks character. And, more to the point, they have an appreciation for what Ahmed did in that performance capture suit, where it's this well-meaning character who keeps failing upward. Yep. How did George describe him again? The character was basically Goofy meets Buster Keaton with a little Jackie Chan thrown in,
Yeah.
right? Or yeah,
And it is. If
okay.
you look at it, it is. And that's the way Ahmed Best did it too. He practiced in front of a mirror. He said he watched a lot of Buster Keaton, and Buster Keaton was his main inspiration. And you look at it and you're going, okay, I can see that. But if maybe it was a character that was silent, it would have worked better too. But still, who knows?
That's an interesting point. But anyway, it's important to stress here that Ahmed is grateful for this late in the game recognition for his work in the prequels. But 25 years ago, different story. Ahmed recalled that because Lucas was delivering new Star Wars movies, something that the fans had been asking for, begging for, since Return of the Jedi had been released in May of '83. So, again, this is Best talking. George was untouchable, and the people who did the effects work and designed the sets and the costumes, they were untouchable too. So who could people who didn't like Phantom Menace, who didn't think this new Star Wars movie met with their expectations, who could they go after? Me, which is why everyone came at me. And also worth noting here that Liam Neeson, who was interviewed back in September 2020 about working on Phantom Menace, backed up Best's story about getting nothing but encouragement on the set of Episode 1, especially when it came to his performance capture work as Jar Jar. Neeson was quoted as saying, "When I was making the movie, Ahmed was probably one of the funniest and most talented guys I'd ever worked with. I liked the finished film, and I'm proud to have been a part of it." And looking back on what Best went through once Phantom Menace was released at theaters, Liam admitted that Ahmed, he came into a lot of criticism to the point that it really hurt his career, which mystified Neeson, because he remembered talking with Best's agent on the set of Episode 1 and saying that Ahmed was doing such great work on Phantom Menace that, and people were so enjoying, what he was doing with performance capture, that Liam sincerely thought that I'm working with the next Eddie Murphy, that this kid's career is going to take right off just as soon as people see Jar Jar Binks. And so, I don't know. Hollywood's a funny town like that. Things never go according to plan or the way you'd expect them. And case in point, Brian, I don't know if you've seen the latest bend on the Rogue Squadron saga.
Remember this?
Okay, so Lucasfilm announces that Patty Jenkins is going to direct this movie back in December of 2020. And this is a really personal story for Jenkins because her dad had been a fighter pilot. He actually lost his life while he was in the service. And so, she was really excited about making this and spent 2 years working on this film, only in March of 2023 to learn that the project got shelved. So it's like, yeah, right, I'll pivot and go to work on Wonder Woman 3, but then Warner Brothers goes through everything Warner Brothers is going through, and they get the new team in charge of DC, and suddenly Wonder Woman 3 is off the schedule. But just as this is happening, suddenly Disney and Lucas raise their hands and say, wait, we changed our minds. We want to put Rogue Squadron back on the schedule. Can you please come back and write and direct this movie? And so evidently, very quietly, this past March, Jenkins signed a brand new contract to do Rogue Squadron. Now, mind you, no locked-in release date. I am hearing that it's strong candidate for 2026, worst-case scenario, pushed off to 2027. So that's back on.
But
now.
Didn't they already? Weren't they? In the first iteration of this, weren't they close to casting it and building sets and getting things ready? Weren't they in pretty much pre-production when they canceled it? Because I heard that it was almost. I mean, they had a date from what was it, a year and a half? So it had to be far along. But this is good news. It's What has been going on over there? Something's happening.
Well, to be honest, a lot of this is Mr. Iger.
Okay.
And trying to send the right messages to Wall Street. And Wall Street wants Disney to make fewer films, but at the same time make smarter use of its pre-existing catalog over on Disney Plus. So that's supposedly factoring into this as well. And so, but again, 2026, possibly 2027. And folks, while you're marking things on the calendar, also want to remind you, the Star Wars Celebration Japan is going to be held next year, April 18th through the 20th, again, 2025, and tickets are on sale right now. And Brian, have you ever traveled to Japan?
Haven't been in Japan yet. I mean, I want to. I keep on. I want to go to Tokyo because I want to go to Disneyland Tokyo. But also, I just it seems like if anything, it's the closest thing to living in America, except the language and stuff. But it's full of pop culture. So.
Oh, no, absolutely. And myself, I've, for a number of years now, I've been kicking the tires, so to speak, of possibly going over to Japan with my daughter Alice.
Oh, that would be terrific.
These days, yeah. I mean, for example, it's something I've definitely been thinking about lately, with all the amazing footage coming out of Fantasy Springs, the new land that's about to open at Tokyo Disney Seas. Likewise, we've got that new Donkey Kong themed area that will be opening at Universal Studios Japan latter part of this year. And at the same time, I would kill to get to both the Ghibli Park and the Ghibli Museum. But again, trips like that take planning. But then again, visiting Disneyland Park in California also takes planning these days. And on the second half of today's show, Brian's going to tell you what happened when he tried to take part in Anaheim's version of May the 4th last week. But first, this. And we're back. Okay, before we get started here, folks, want to direct your attention to an amazing piece of video that was taken inside of the Disneyland version of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge this past week. It shows all of these Star Wars fans gathered in the central square at Black Spire Outpost. They've all brought their lightsabers into the park, which Brian, I'm thinking, had to be a huge pain in the ass at the security checkpoint. But when it finally gets dark enough, you see this entire group of people ignite their lightsabers and then hold them in the sky, and it's just impressive, and I think it would have been especially impressive to experience in person.
Oh yeah,
and again, Brian tried. Brian gave it his damnedest, but you got tripped up by the Disneyland reservation system. Is that correct?
I got the pass not so long ago to see the Seasons of the Force. And that was the first time I got my tickets and everything went through correctly. But when you go through the app, there are several ways to get reservations. And each one is different. Each one shows something different, and each process is different. So when I got reservations for the 25th, because that's the true May 25th, because that's the true Disney, or that's a true Star Wars day, and then I got it for July 17th, which of course is Disneyland's birthday.
Yep.
And then I'm waiting to get it for August 8th, which is the D23 day. And they haven't gone on. They haven't gone live yet, but I think it's up to 7, so it's probably going to go to 8. So if you're going to go there and stuff, you may think about getting it. If you at least make the reservation, you can cancel the reservation. So anyway, I thought I got tickets to May for when I first got the application, it was blocked out. It was sold out. So I kept on trying. And then in May, it all opened up. So I got my May the 4th, and I was very happy. And I emailed you, and, we were all happy. And you go, by the way, if you're there, get that cat thingy.
Yes, we'll tell that story in a moment. But okay.
Yes. So I get there. I'm driving in. I'm getting there. I'm opening up my app to get parking, and I don't have the reservation. And I don't know what happened. Okay. But I went in there anyway. They let me in, and I stuck around for the whole day, and I was refreshing, and nothing ever came up. I asked several people. Nobody wanted to help me. Well, there was one person that had a suggestion. They said that I should buy a ticket to DCA, right, to Disney California Adventure, go in there, buy another $100 ticket, and then go over to Disneyland.
Okay, would that have worked?
Yeah.
Okay.
They suggested that. Oh, yeah, it would have worked, but I would have had to buy another ticket. So at the same time, somebody mentioned that the next day was going to be something called Revenge of the 5th, and then also Revenge of the 6th, which is, of course, Sith. So I decided I got reservations for the next day because one popped up, and I went there the next day, and I was able to get in there, and I was able to I got all they had all the merch still there. So I went to the Star Wars. Remember that used to be the restaurant. I went over there, and they had all the T-shirts and stuff. I wasn't crazy about the design, but I did get here. I'll put it up on Instagram, but
okay.
So I got that, and then also
that was a pin. Oh, and the Grogu sipper.
Yeah, I showed you the pin, and then I got a Grogu sipper, and I had the Banta burger, which was very interesting. But the best part about it, instead of having bacon, they had marinated pork belly, and that was amazing. And they had they called it Asian slaw, but it was kimchi, and the Banta burger was a Impossible burger mixed with real meat and cheese. So that was worth going there. I did not. They ran out of the Millennium Falcon with the French fries, and I did get into Oga's Cantinas.
Now, speaking of which, to my part of the story here, Brian is such a good friend that I had mentioned in passing, because Nancy and I have this collection of Disney cats. In fact, every year we take the cat tree, the climbing structure we have here at the house for Betty and Ginger, and we turn it into a Disney Catmas tree. We arrange all of our Disney cat plush in an amusing way. But so I mentioned to Brian that, we got this Disney cat collection, and I noticed that they're going to be selling at Oga's Cantina this Loth Cat Tiki mug on May the 4th. And I have to tell you, folks, tiki mugs, especially the Disney ones, are tough to get. Well, first of all, they do short production runs because it's all about quality. More to the point, there are a lot of very passionate tiki mug collectors out there, especially comes with the Disney stuff. So whenever these things are put out there, there are long lines at Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar at the Disneyland Hotel. Likewise, equally long lines at the Trader Sam's Grotto and Tiki Bar out at the Polynesian Village Resort and the hotel there in Walt Disney World. So, but Brian was determined to get it for me, and so very appreciative. And then being displayed proudly on my kitchen counter right now, waiting for that blue milk. But I have to ask.
Well, I almost didn't get it. Yeah.
All right. So explain that. What happened there?
Okay. The first day, I tried to get in, and I talked to several people, and everybody was not helpful at all. But that's fine. They're doing their job. Then I get in there, and when you get in Disneyland, not only are people helpful, they're willing to go the extra mile. So I get in line. A woman shows me how to get my reservations. So I got my reservations, or at least I thought I did. Again, technology. And I asked her, are there any more tiki mugs? and she says, "Oh no, we ran out of them tomorrow or yesterday."
Right.
But then, as I was waiting, I go, well, I'll go in there anyway and get one of the foofy drinks or hummus or whatever. So I'm looking through the menu, and it's still on the menu. So I'm going, that's weird. So I waited half an hour, nothing. And it wasn't even saying that I had a reservation. So I went up to the guy and I said, listen, I've been waiting. I think I messed it up. Right now, you're not taking reservations. Do you know when? And he goes, wait a minute, just stay right here. And then he talked to somebody. They went in and they came out and they said yes. And then I went in and they had a place for me at the bar, but then it had to switch, and there was the tiki mug. So I ordered the tiki mug with the drink, which was, I don't know who's, on any kind of medication, but they're doing some of the best flavors. And I don't drink, and this was a non-alcoholic drink, and it was delicious to where I am going to try to make my own.
Okay.
Now, the thing about it, and you will see, do not try to drink from it without a straw. And the reason why is the ears will hit you in the eyes.
Okay.
And I did it, clink to my glasses, and I'm going, can I have a straw, please? But it was fun. Have you been inside?
I have, and I have.
It's amazing.
No, they do nice work there. I at the same time though, I'm old. It's a little loud. And by the way, to give
I
you,
love loud.
If Brian's going to make this thing at home, okay, I am looking at the ingredients here. It is guava juice, coconut milk, lime juice, pure cane syrup, topped with. Am I reading this right? Basil crystals?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to get, but
all right. So, but again,
but it was delicious.
Well,
I love coconut milk and anything with coconut milk, and especially when you put some kind of citrus in it, it knocks it out of the park. So, I mean, if they put, I don't know. I think that Disney could try to find something to compete with Butterbeer, because in Oga's Cantina, they have some really tasty drinks.
They do.
Of course, it's only in there, and but it's such a neat place. Like you say, it is loud, but when you go in there, you're brought into the whole Star Wars thing, and it was so neat to see Rex back there. But I don't know, is that?
Speaking of Rex, that brings me to that new Star Tours ride film that you and Devin experienced during your first trip in for Season of the Force. My buddy Nate, though, clued me into, he experienced the Walt Disney World version of Star Tours, and he said his favorite moment out of this new-ish ride film is when Osaka, at the end of her interactions with C-3PO and R2-D2, she rotates her a TG shuttle, and evidently R2 in response does the same thing with the Starspeeder 1000. Do you remember that as well? Or
I noticed it the third time I went on it.
Okay, all right. So
the first time I was just focusing on other things, and then the second time I go, did we just flip?
Yeah.
And then the third time I went on. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and then when I went back, they changed it too. I had different things. I went to Hoth, and I went to Wookiee World.
Kashyyyk. Okay. Cool.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. I've never been. I never even knew this, and they have updated all their habitats there. It doesn't look like IKEA anymore. And it's a great little bit, but also there's Ahsoka is also, she comes across as the transmission also.
Oh, okay.
So she'll do the transmission, and behind her is Chopper and Professor Huang. Is that it? And then she'll go to the side screen.
Okay.
And the thing is, but then or you'll get the Mando and Grogu. But I only got that the first time with Devin, and the second time and third time I went. So it's a different thing every time you go. And yes, the third time I did the flip, I'm going, oh my gosh, we're going upside down.
Okay, that's
so yeah.
I'm going to have to ask Mr. Schul at some point to explain how they do that particular effect with a motion-based simulator. Now, speaking of ride films, that makes me think of what's been going on over at Disney Plus. We just recently had the series finale for Star Wars: A Bad Batch. Likewise, we had for May the 4th day, we had our Star Wars Tales of the Empire. And Brian, you have a lovely write-up about the Bad Batch that we're going to get to in a sec. But before you talk, I just want to be upfront that I was wrong about tech. There was no dramatic.
We're all wrong.
Yeah, no dramatic return in the cavalry has arrived. But tell me that when you were watching Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair do battle with those clone commandos, tell me you weren't expecting that, one of those clone commandos was going to lose their helmet in battle and then be revealed to be tech.
100%.
Yeah.
Even the second time I saw it, even when I didn't know about it, I'm still sitting there going,
No, that's it exactly. And it's just and that's the thing. Given the way Filoni works, in fact, there was a part of me that's like, this is what this bastard's going to do. That he's going to throw this at us in the last minute, and then that's going to be the path for the next Bad Batch, the follow-up series, so where we have Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair and Echo and Omega. First, they have to find their altered friend, and then they have to redeem him. I mean, just from the story arc that Crosshair's had in this series, But that's it. But it didn't happen. I mean, we did get to see Tech's goggles one last time on the dashboard of the ship that the now grown Omega climbed into when she went off to join the rebellion. And speaking of which, again, just putting this out here. Okay, the episodes early on in season 3 that showed Omega being confined at Hemlock's secret facility at Mount Tannis. At one point, they show us like a wall of crossed off days, and months and months and months and months have gone by, Brian.
Yeah.
Omega never aged. I mean, she stayed the same size.
But her hair got longer.
Did it? Now I got to go back.
Yeah.
All right, I got to.
Yeah, because the ponytail's longer.
All right, I will go back and look. But because again,
when you first saw her, when she goes up to Crosshair's and he says, "I've tried to escape," and stuff, her hair is longer. Okay. So,
all right.
But little girls don't grow that much, and of course, remember she is not accelerated, so she grows at a normal rate.
Okay, but that's the thing that's what kind of threw me with the epilogue scene where it's like Omega finally aged.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right.
I mean, and
okay, yeah.
And so that was the thing of, wait a minute, we saw her, in confinement for months, and again, now I go back and look at the ponytail to see that she got longer hair. But yeah, that was the my only caveat about the show. Otherwise, loved it to death, and obviously you too are a fan. So let's hear.
Oh man,
let's hear your take on Bad Batch finale.
Well, first of all, it's the perfect way to end a series, and they did. They gave us a finale, and that was terrific. Mm-hmm. The last title, "The Cavalry Has Arrived." Devin brought it up. He goes, "Here's another trivia for you, Dad." I go, what? He goes, The cavalry has arrived was the first thing that Wrecker said when they were introduced in Clone Wars.
Oh.
So they're coming off the ship. Mm-hmm. Wrecker's in the back. Mm-hmm. He takes off his helmet. He goes, the cavalry has arrived. And that's that's the callback.
Okay. All right. Didn't pick up
and
on that.
I,
okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I didn't either. Of course, I didn't either. I had to have my 22-year-old son tell me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But no, the whole thing was a great action film, mm-hmm. and also when they come out of the at the beginning. Mm-hmm. when the cavalry arrived, one of the guys says, "What is it? They're called 99, or they're called Clone Force 99." He goes, 99, nice touch." I forgot why they were named 99. Do you remember? Okay, remember there was that one reject clone that got older than everybody else, and he was cleaning up, and he helped them out he helped the clones out when something was going wrong. So they named these, the Clone Force 99. They named him that after him.
Oh, that's a nice touch. Okay.
Yeah. So, but they even say exactly that's the line in it. Oh, nice touch. 99, nice touch. Okay. Yeah. There was a lot of callbacks at the end. The whole thing with Echo and then going to what is it, Pabu, and all the bad guys get taken out, which was there you go again, good versus evil. Now, is Hemlock gone? Well, probably, because they didn't talk about him afterwards, and they're changing his project. But we know that what's the other guy's name? The guy who tried to blow or take all the information. Well, he blew up with, now let's say. So everything was kind of wrapped up. And then when they were on there, and then they had the epilogue. And how long do you think it was? How much older do you think she was? You think it was like 5-6 years?
Well,
or 10 years maybe?
What was more interesting is that when you looked at Hunter, and that was the thing. Hunter had clearly aged. He had his beard. He did, and again, it was interesting to have him do the dad talk. And at the same time, he knew he had to let her go. And so I'm going to say it was a good 10 years, 15 years.
Okay, but that's so funny that you said the dad talk too. A lot of times Omega was the adult to those three. And especially Crosshairs. And and Crosshairs is now a member of the No Right Hand Club. I thought that was neat. And I also like the fact that he didn't make a big deal about it. He was almost relieved that this hand he couldn't use anymore was gone. But that last scene of them, of Hunter in the middle, I'm getting chills right now, of Omega falling asleep, of Batch sleeping in the back, and then Wrecker comes and sits on one side, and Crosshairs sits on the other, and they all get on their knees. And you look at that shot, and that is what the whole series was about. It was about family. It was basically Omega's series. It was about watching her grow and becoming the person she is. Because if you think about it, I mean, they dropped the ball, not dropping the ball, but they didn't go into the whole, is she force sensitive? Which I think that's for later if they're going to get into that at all. But they did get into the fact that she is mentally older than them, but there's so much incredibly love and and unconditional that it just, when you watch it, you just feel. I mean, I got emotional a couple times because you feel for each one of them. You've liked every one of them from the moment you saw them. You liked them all. And even Crosshairs, when he was doing his thing and going off, and you were pissed off at him, you still liked him. But then he turned around completely, and he became the funniest character, on the show. He became sarcastic. He realized what was going on. So yeah, well, I think Bad Batch really took what Clone Wars was, and it brought it to a whole different level.
Again, I am hoping that what you had heard rumored, the follow-up show with, blanking their names, We've met them before, both on
Rex.
Yep, there we go.
Rex, Wolf, and I can't remember, but yeah,
no,
that should be because remember we did see them in Rebels.
We did.
So, and they didn't make it to the island. So, but a lot of others did. But a lot of them left too to go back to fight for and that's another thing we've never seen clones, or have we seen clones fight for the Republic?
Not for the that's interesting.
So that's something. And I also found it interesting that Wrecker, Hunter, and Crosshair, they stayed on that island all those years, that they were ready to retire, that they didn't go back into the war.
Well, again, the nice thing about a time jump of that length is there's a lot of canvas that could be filled in. In fact, I mean, think about the Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series, and the fact that suddenly you have that character rescuing a young Princess Leia. It'll be interesting to see. And again, knowing Filoni, he's got a card or two up his sleeves. But all right,
I know.
Anyway, now speaking of stories that take us to parts of the story we haven't seen previously, Tales of the Empire, the special May the 4th bit of programming from Lucasfilm Animation, kind of again, much in the style of Tales of the Jedi from 2022, in that we got a total of 6 short-ish pieces. Those ones were about Ahsoka and Count Dooku, right? Whereas,
yeah, 3 were about Ahsoka and 3 were about Dooku, and they really, brought out what the characters were, especially Dooku. Okay. I could watch a whole movie about Dooku.
Yeah, but now this time around, we went a different way. We got our origin story of Morgan Elsbeth, and then the story of Barriss after she had betrayed Ahsoka. And what'd you think?
Well, I don't know if we needed the Elsbeth because we already know how hers ends. And, they try to make her a tragic figure, but I never felt any kind of tragedy there. I just felt that, she took a situation and she made it worse for herself and other people. So I wasn't crazy about that. The Barriss isn't over yet. So if they didn't stop on that cliffhanger, I would have said, you don't need this. But because they stopped on the cliffhanger, was it that 4th sister? Or 3rd sister? Now there's a story there. And that, to me, all that led up to was the story that comes afterwards. So I'm looking forward to that. But the Morgan Elsbeth, I don't know. I felt that the whole thing, because of how it ended and stuff, I don't know if we needed that. And it was hard to watch the Barriss thing after you knew how she, messed over Ahsoka. And did they really deserve their own stories? I don't know.
Again, but this is the thing. I in Dave Filoni we trust. Yes. So it's just sort of like, and again, Dave will often show you something or tell you something because later on that's going to pay off. So. All right, and speaking of later on, folks, we've gone almost an hour here, so I think that's going to do it for this week. And again, if the planets align, Brian and I will be back with a brand new episode of Looking at Lucasfilm in just 2 weeks' time.
And our review on Blue Milk.
Yes, but also on the next show, we're going to talk about Skeleton Crew. And did you see the news this week that Phil Tippett that Lucasfilm actually brought Phil Tippett back, the guy who did the wonderful stop motion Wampas and the walkers on Hoth, because they wanted this new limited series, which again is going to debut on Disney Plus, supposedly December this year. They wanted it to have that old school Star Wars vibe, so leaning into the practical effects and the use future vibe. So really looking forward to learning more about that. And again, remember, we are also just a few weeks out now from the June 4th debut of The Acolyte, and on that day we get 2 episodes back to back. So lots of stuff for Brian and I to talk about. But in the meantime, Brian, where can our listeners find you on social media?
Well, you can get me on Instagram at BTGaughan, Gaughan, and you can see I put I will be putting a lot of stuff from my times getting into Disneyland on May the 4th, and also, what is it? Revenge of the 5th.
There we go. Okay. So now for myself, you can find me on the site formerly known as Twitter. Also on Instagram is Jim Hill Media News, and also on Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. And speaking of Jim Hill Media, we have a couple other podcasts here we'd love you to check out. We, of course, have the mothership, so to speak, Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. Also have Fine Tuning that I do with Drew Taylor. And by the way, I want to mention that Mr. Taylor, along with Charles Hood, does the wonderful Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. Be sure and check that out.
They have you have to listen to they do Alexander Payne. Yep. They talk to him, and it's I've seen interviews by of these people. Mm-hmm. They do the best interviews because it's like sitting around a campfire and talking. Also, Jonathan, the director of Clue is Kaplan.
There we go.
Yeah, it's so neat because you'll want to go back and watch all these movies every time they talk about it.
That is true. Also, want to mention that Eric Hersey, who edits and produces a lot of the podcasts here, he and I just did a brand new episode of the Epic Universal podcast. And his lovely bride and I, Lauren Hersey, she and I will be doing a brand new episode of I Want That. And
are you going to talk about the lowcat?
I'm going to at least show it off. Just sort of like, look at the cool thing that Brian got for me. Let's see. Beyond that, folks, want to ask a favor. If you could head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and recommend this show, that's very helpful. Oh, and also remind you about our Patreon project, Disney Unpacked. This is Len and Mai's first ever video series, producing collaboration with Jim Schul, a veteran Imagineer, 30 years at the company, worked on some of your favorite attractions of the park. And this month's show over at Disney Unpacked is about the stunt shows at the Disney theme parks. And we have all sorts of fun stories to share about the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. But for now, that's going to do it. So on behalf of Mr. Gaughan, I want to thank you for listening to this week's Looking at Lucasfilm, and we will be back soon.